Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This talk is about self-love in the context of ACA Recovery, specifically the Tony A steps, which I will list in the description below. As an ACA, I'm not in the habit of practicing self-love. It doesn't come naturally, and it's often met with inner resistance. Why is this? I believe that on an unconscious level, which is where the inner child resides, that I feel both unloved and unlovable. Therefore, if I want to practice self-love, I must make a conscious decision to do so on a daily basis. And I find it easier to love the positive aspects of my personality, as opposed to the negative ones, such as my survival traits, otherwise known as the 14 traits of an ACA, or simply the laundry list. However, each of these traits points back to a wounded part of myself that needs love in order to heal. A trait is merely a symptom of the wound itself. They're two sides of the same coin. If I respond to a trait with disgust, shame, or anger, then the underlying wound will not heal. If I limit self-love to only my character assets, the parts that I like, then the wounded parts will not heal. Loving all my parts, including my survival traits, is unconditional love, which is precisely what the Tony A steps call for. Let's review the Tony A steps, specifically the ones that talk about love and healing. Step 3, we made a decision to practice self-love and to trust in our higher power. Step 3, we were entirely ready to begin the healing process with the aid of our higher power. Step 7, we humbly asked our higher power to help us with our healing process. This makes me ask, what is this healing process that steps 6 and 7 are talking about? Let's continue. Step 8, we became willing to open ourselves to receive the unconditional love of our higher power. Step 9, we became willing to open ourselves to accept our own unconditional love by understanding that our higher power loves us unconditionally. That's it. That is the healing process. Unconditional love. Ultimately, to love myself. Step 10, we continue to take personal inventory and to love and approve of ourselves. And step 12, we have had a spiritual awakening as a result of taking these steps. And we continue to love ourselves and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And what are the principles? They include trusting and receiving unconditional love from our higher power and to love ourselves unconditionally. It couldn't be more clear, and it couldn't be more simple. The word love is mentioned 6 times in the Tony A steps. The word love is mentioned 0 times in the standard AA, Al-Anon, and ACA steps. I'm not trying to knock the standard AA version of the 12 steps, but they were designed for adult Robbie, who has picked up character defects in his adult life, has harmed himself and others, and therefore needs to take responsibility by making amends. I absolutely need the standard 12 steps in order to do this. But I also need the Tony A steps, which are aimed at little Robbie, the inner child who was a victim, not a perpetrator, who has emotional wounds that can only be healed by unconditional love from my higher power and ultimately from myself. Unconditional means no matter what. In other words, to love myself no matter what. And since love can be an abstract concept or idea, I like to substitute what I consider to be the components of love into what unconditional love means. To accept myself no matter what. To forgive myself no matter what. To be patient with myself no matter what, etc. This must be directed to all parts of myself, but especially the wounded parts of myself. I have come up with a prayer to help me to do this, and it involves incorporating the 14 traits. God, please help me to love the wounded part of myself that needs to isolate so that it can heal. I can repeat this prayer and substitute any other trait into it. For example, God, please help me to love the wounded part of myself that needs external approval so that it can heal, and so on. I sometimes go through all of the traits using this prayer, and I can break it down further by substituting the components of love. For example, God, please help me to accept or forgive or have patience with or be kind to or be compassionate with the wounded part of me that judges itself harshly so that it can heal. This helps to remind me that I have wounded parts and that these parts need love and that love has many forms. Unconditional love means that I love these parts no matter what in every possible way. This, of course, is a tall order. It's something I cannot do on my own. I need to enlist the help of my higher power to do this. I would suggest to anyone working the ACA program to become familiar with the Tony A version of the steps, to understand how to practice them, to see their relationship with the 14 traits, to understand how they differ from as well as support the standard steps. For ACA Recovery, self-love is not an option. It is an absolute requirement. When you understand this, the Tony A steps make perfect sense. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening and keep coming back. And as a side note, due to a copyright issue, ACA is unable to publish the Tony A steps. However, their principles are most definitely represented in all of ACA's literature. ACA World Service also allows the Tony A steps to be read at meetings. I've included them in the description below. I also put a link to Tony A's book, which explains his take on his steps as well as the 14 traits. There's also a link to a YouTube video of Tony A introducing his steps to the ACA Fellowship. Pass.